children of all ages. Welcome to this special edition of the People's Choice, joined by Damita Chatman of Let's Take a Stand. Ladies and gentlemen, we have the joy and the accolades, if you will, today to join together on this special edition of WCEG's Take a Stand and the People's Choice. You got to forgive me. I'm stumbling here today. I'm just excited that we have such a wonderful, esteemed guest to join us today. My name is Joe Flint, all one word, like a tribe called Quest, the host of the People's Choice. And I want to introduce my colleague, my friend, the greatest person in the city of South Fulton, Damita Chatman, host of Take a Stand.
Thank you, Joe. I wanted Joe to do that for me today because I just love when that preacher do that. It's just something about a preacher when he introduce you. I want to thank Joe, and I have a guest today, Dr. Farmers.
Yes.
She's living in another country now, but when I met her years ago, she did a podcast, and I was like, oh my God, who is that? So I want to thank her for coming. And I'm going to give her opportunity to tell about herself, and then we're going to go on and dive into what we got to talk about. All right, Dr. Farmers.
Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Dwanda Farmer, and I am the CED doctor. I'd like to start off today by thanking you so very much for inviting me here today to trade ideas and views about race and politics in America. I still have a home in Maryland, so I don't want to hear anybody say, oh, she lives in another country, although I did. Okay, but that's nevertheless, you might want to find yourself a home in another country too. Now, I am a political junkie. I am a community economic development professional. I've worked in community for the last 3 decades, and I focus on affordable housing and small business development. I am a political junkie. I love politics, and I'm here for all the smoke today.
All right, thank you.
Let's
Let us
get
go.
ready to rumble.
Oh, I love it, Joe. Let me ask you, um, before we dive in, Joe. The other night, let me say this first. I want to thank you for sharing that night with us, November the 5th. And you kept on telling me, we kept looking at each other that night, and the people were saying, Damita, calm down, the number's not in. And every now and then I would holler, Lord Jesus, Lord Jesus. And when me and you did that eye contact and another moderator, I knew then that it was just a feeling that I got that the race was over.
Right.
Did you get that sense too?
Let me add, I forgot to say this. These comments, these remarks are those of Joe Flint, Damita, and Dwanda. They are not the
Amen.
comments of WCEG Talk Radio, the Worldwide Community Empowerment Group. So don't get mad at them, get mad at us when we say, and like Damita, she says, I approve this message. Call me. We got a problem with it. But listen, let me say this, Damita. If you remember it, and I hate to back this up, but you remember the day that they announced that she was going to be the candidate for the Democratic Party. I called you. I don't know if you remember. I called you and said, Damita, I just don't know how this is going to happen. And not because I didn't have faith and belief in her, but because I know that she only had, I think 100 days to really pull off a campaign. And then the truth of the matter is, whether you like or dislike President Trump, he beat a woman before. And so what made you believe that he would not beat a woman again? Now, this has nothing to do with the fact that she is a woman running, but I knew just from the short distance of time that she had to actually run a race that this was going to be a difficult thing. Now, did she do a fantastic job? I think she did a good job. I think that, in the time span that they had, they did an excellent job at getting her message across. But it's not like someone who's had had an entire year to actually run a race. But that night when we were there at the watch party, when we saw how quickly those electoral votes were jumping ahead for President-elect Donald Trump, I knew then that our feet were going to be weighed in the water. Because it was a difficult task for her to get to that. And now I will say I was also thoroughly surprised at the states that didn't go for her. And I often wonder, was it that there was just not enough appeal there, or did Donald Trump just make a greater appeal. And I'll say this and I'll move on. Quite often people get at me about the fact that I'm always saying that the Democratic Party needs to head to South Georgia. And they say, oh, well, they don't need to go down there. It's a waste of time, this, that, and the other. I don't ever believe that. I believe that if you have the opportunity and you have a message to convey, you have to go to convey your message. People were so convinced that in the previous election that Georgia had turned completely blue. Georgia had turned blurple. It wasn't blue, it was blurple, because in South Georgia, there's a thing called polarity, and they hold a greater amount of ability to cast, elections and make all of their votes count than we do here in the metro area. And I'll just give this example. Atlanta may have 50,000 people. Well, only 25,000 voted in Atlanta. Whereas you go down to South Georgia, they have 25,000 people. All 25,000 people vote. And so that's how polarity is examined. And so, although it wasn't a great night for the Democrats, but it should be a lesson, if you will, for just throwing somebody out there with less than 100 days to run for office.
What you think about that, Dr. Farmers?
Well, I definitely feel like Kamala ran an excellent campaign for 100 days. I have to agree with Reverend Flint that I don't think that the Democrats thought clearly about making her the nominee. The process in which they went about making her the nominee created a little division in the party. And therefore, the Democratic Party was probably never fully and squarely behind the nominee, right? And I think in hindsight, we should focus on the lesson that we probably should talk less about the candidate, the opposing candidate, and more about the issues that really matter to the American people. Right now, I've put my name on the ballot and ran for office 4 different times. And one of the rules of engagement is we never mention the other candidate's name. If you don't know who is running in this race against me, you will never hear it from me. It is their job to introduce themselves to you and not mine. They raised $1 billion in 100 days. That is amazing. However, they probably would have best spent it had they put forward clear proposals and plans that would be beneficial and helpful to the American people. I think the Democrats are so focused on this expanding the base by opening a big tent. And Big Tent is cute until the reality of it still puts Black people in the back of the tent. Right. And so I agree with my mayor, Brandon Scott, who came out and said, America doesn't deserve Black women. America doesn't deserve Black people. We really are just the backbone of that party, and we have been supporting them at 90 plus percentage points for decades. And if you really nitpick and go back in the history, they've never really been squarely on our side. Right. And so that is something that the Democratic Party is going to have to reckon with. And Black people are, surely they're not blind. Right. And so when you widen the tent and you say, okay, let us bring our LGBTQIA sisters and brothers into the fold, right? And then they advance in 20 years where Black people have not advanced in 200 years. And then coronavirus hits America and somebody spits it as an Asian. And now you have a whole anti-hate bill for Asians. You can't pass an anti-lynching bill. And you can't pass a voting rights act for Black people. There's a problem with the Democratic Party and the Black people that support it. And I will just say this, and then I'll land, is that the Democratic Party and this country, not just Democratic Party, this country has a problem with racism that it does not want to face.
You better say that.
And so the reality, it's almost like a drug addict, a substance abuser, who an alcoholic who refuses to accept that their problem is so severe. Right. They need real help and they need to change. They will not do it until they hit rock bottom. And maybe this is their rock bottom, or certainly, the top of the hill to the downslide to it. And all I can say is this, that Black women has been saving America since we came to these shores on slave ships, from their babies suckling our breasts to keep their children alive, to bailing out the Democratic Party and bringing Joe Biden into the presidency in 2020. It's a never-ending story for Black women to save America, and yet no one is protecting or saving Black women. We are the most uncovered, unprotected being on the planet. And I think at some point we have to say enough is enough.
I was just going to ask you, do you think I'm gonna ask you this, Dr. Farmer, then I'm gonna ask you, do you think it's time now that Black women just stand down? You guys showed us during this election that we didn't have the power. It was all in the power of the white woman. And then with so sad, they all jump on the bandwagon, but when it's time to vote, just like the last vote for Stacey Abrams, we thought the white women was behind Stacey Abrams, and then when it was time to vote, the white women did just what they did this election. They went in the ballot and voted for the white man. What do you think, Farmers?
Well, I think, I'll go back to when we elected Shirley Franklin mayor of Atlanta. It was a tough fight. And people didn't really want to do it. And it was hard to get white women to stand up with Black women and say, we're women. And the only way that we were able to do that was to shame them by saying, hey, the women's movement only applies to women when you want Black women to fall in line to support white women. When are white women going to support Black women? And then people like Nan Orrock stood up and said, you're exactly right. And Kathy Ash said, you are exactly right. It's time for white women to stand up for Black women too. And that's how we got Shirley Franklin elected. So I don't know why, white women made the choices that they did, but they did, right? And I'll just say this. Let me just go back to this whole party issue, right? And as a Black female with values, I am a Christian woman. The top priorities that I heard being talked about from the Democratic Party are not issues that I care passionately about.
I agree. I agree.
Right. I don't care if you get an abortion. It's not my business. I do not want to have one for myself, but that is your choice, ma'am. I do not want to move in any way to prevent you from doing that. Just like there's a liquor store and a cannabis store on different corners around America, if you don't go in those places, if you don't want what they're pushing. And if you don't want to go have an abortion, you don't go and get one. But I've never seen anybody protesting outside of those places and trying to prevent the people who would go there from going. And so I just think that America needs to just come back into minding our own business a little bit. I just don't think that it's reasonable that we should concern ourselves with who people are sleeping with. I don't think the conversation of sex change for children should even be happening at school. It should be happening at home, if at all, right? If children want to discuss their, sexuality and how they're feeling, those things should be guided by parents. Now, if you think that the government has some responsibility to play in that, then you should have education for parents, not children,
Okay.
right? So then parents can educate their children appropriately.
I got you.
And I will just say this one last thing, because I'm just, an academic and I want to present facts. In 1978, there was a ballot initiative in California called the Briggs Initiative, and it was to stop teachers from discussing homosexuality in schools, to fire teachers who were outed as homosexual, and all of these things. And the Democrats nor the Republicans would stand up against Briggs. But God bless Ronald Reagan, a Republican, who happened to be the governor of California at the time, who thought it was wrong and could see the damage that could potentially happen just from somebody saying it, even if it wasn't true. And it was Ronald Reagan that blocked that. And so that's all I'm saying when I say in 40 years, we've done a complete turnaround where now the teacher can have this discussion with your child and do not even have to tell you. And next thing you know, your kid has an appointment for a sex change operation.
Right.
If I can join in, Damita, I have to say, I think Dr. Farmer's right. I think there was too much attention being placed on abortion rights. I think the Democratic Party just spent, honestly, this entire election focus on women's rights and abortion rights. And, there were some other things sprinkled in there, like her plan for, tax cuts for 100 million Americans and stuff like that. But there was too much emphasis.
Excuse me, Reverend Flint. If they want to focus on women's issues, they should focus on my paycheck being the same as the white
Right,
people who are
right.
getting a paycheck for the same work. That's a woman's issue.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with you wholeheartedly. There was a lot of fear mongering going on in that particular thing. And so I agree. Listen, I don't have a problem with saying I'm not a fan of it, but I'm not in your house. I don't, what goes on in your house goes on in your house. I don't believe in abortion. But the fact that the election spent, I would say, a good 50% of its focus on women's rights the entire time made it a harder issue to go with, because at this point, what else is there? And is the only thing that I'm concerned about is abortion rights, all the things that fall under that umbrella. It became playing the radio. It was an infomercial over and over and over again. Again, I think that they did a good job with the time frame that they have, but they focus on the wrong things. I would even say, and we know this, President-elect Trump never says exactly what he's going to do. That's not up for the discussion. He tells you something and then he goes off on a tantrum about something else. But the issue was not that he doesn't do that. He does that. Everybody knows he does that. The truth is, people were looking for Vice President Harris to give a more concrete plan, and she was not doing enough of that in her message.
All right. Let me ask you something, Joe, because we're looking at the numbers, and when the election was going on, they was trying to put America against the black man.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But I got the numbers just in Georgia.
78%. I think
78% black men voted.
Yep.
But they were trying to throw that the black men wasn't voting.
But who was doing that, Damita?
Yeah,
it wasn't the Republican Party. It wasn't the Republican Party throwing it at us. It was us.
Yes. And let me say this, Joe. I'm gonna use our numbers, and I'm gonna use my hometown numbers. In my hometown, which is Lime, Ohio, I looked at their ballot. Not a Democrat ran on their ticket. Everybody on that ticket was Republican.
Wow.
So my thing is, why aren't you grooming folks to try to take those seats? Mm-hmm. Everybody from the judge all the way down to, I'm gonna say, the trash man was a Republican. Okay. Mm-hmm. Then you had only 27% of black folks that voted.
Wow.
In that election. That says something. You had to the
statement about polarity. That goes back to that statement. In Lima, I don't know what the population is there, but only 27% voted there. I guarantee if you go to another area that's not, predominantly black, you had probably 80, if not 90%.
Absolutely, you did.
I think you guys, there's a big glaring reason for that, right? Like, if people don't see themselves in the party or in politics or in any place in American politics, if voting is not going to change their circumstance, there is something called hopelessness. And it's sad that, listen, black people cannot afford to lose hope or to have despair, right? Because the next generation feels that inability to overcome. See, what has carried black people through the year is we shall overcome. It's the belief and a hope in a God that was able, that we were going to overcome no matter what it was that we had to endure in America. And when people lose that hope, it drives a anger and a fear. That's why you see young people wilding out and having all this crime, because they're angry and they don't have any outlet and they don't see any hope for a change for them. See, people have seen clearly the police and what the police have been doing, right? But what people don't know is the police is a microcosm of all of America. It's the firefighters, it's the doctors, it's the nurses, it's the teachers. It's everywhere. Right? People want to point the finger and say, oh, well, if racism does still exist, it's only the police. But that's not true. Nor is it fair to scapegoat the police. And if you wonder if there's something inherently different about Black bodies and other people's bodies that caused more Black people to die in COVID, I would ask you to just consider that you have those same factions in healthcare that you have in the police department.
Oh, I agree. Let me ask you a question. Do you think that President-elect will bring change?
Absolutely. Listen, Donald Trump has the opportunity that the Democrats squandered. In 2008, Barack Obama had the presidency, the House, and the Senate, and he wanted to play nice. He wanted to play nice. Instead of pushing forward an anti-lynching bill, instead of pushing forward a voting rights act, instead of pushing forward, other affirming actions for Black people in this country, right? I think that this country should afford the American descendants of slaves the same protections, the same initiatives, the same set asides that they've given the American Indian.
I agree.
Okay.
Let me ask you this. Why do you think that the Black folks can't get anything, but just like New York, they gave all that money to the Latinos. California gave. Why is it that the Black folks can't get nothing?
And
Help me
Because we
understand.
settle for everything else. Simply
yeah, because
because we
your
settle for
job is to
everything
fight
else.
for the other people, not that your job is to be the soldiers on the front line in the fight, to take the punches, to die, to suffer the cause. And then all these others have come into the tent and got in the front of the line. You're
That's
still in the back of the
right there,
tent.
Dwanda.
That is what I was saying in the opening when I said that the Democrats' goal was to expand the tent. But everyone has come in the tent, has gone in the line in front of us. And let me just talk about immigration, because I've been living in this foreign country for 4 years. And let me just give y'all some few little facts. When I got off the plane, they stamped my passport, said, "Welcome to Belize, Miss American citizen. Come on over and enjoy yourself.
Didn't call you
Enjoy
Black. It called you American citizen. Didn't call you Black.
no,
Citizen. Yeah.
enjoy our beautiful country." But in 30 days, ma'am, if you'd like to stay beyond that, you need to present yourself at an immigration office. And we have one in each district in this country. And once you present yourself, please bring your passport. Please bring documentation of your living arrangements. And then please bring a bank statement to demonstrate that you have the financial capacity to take care of yourself for the next 30, 60, or 90 days. But I will not remain in this country beyond 90 days without personally presenting myself and my passport at an immigration office and showing them where I am living and that I have the financial fortitude to remain here. Other than that, they call the U.S. Embassy and they facilitate my one way back home. Right now, if America wants to deal with its immigration problem, the simplest thing to do and create jobs in America would be to open an immigration office in every county around America.
I
Well, you
like
should
that.
not,
I like
you
that.
certainly shouldn't have to drive more than an hour or two to get yourself to an immigration office. Oh, one more thing I forgot to tell you. When I get to the immigration office with those documents, I am then required to pay a fee every month that I want to be here. A fee of 100 US dollars in order to get my passport stamped to stay. And so the immigration office pays for itself here. And our immigration office could pay for itself as well. It's not like I'm putting another burden on the taxpaying citizens of America. What I am doing is putting these immigrants where we can know exactly where they are, what they're doing in our country, because they drop off in California. Next thing you know, they in Vermont. Well, you still have to go to the immigration office in
Yeah.
Vermont, right? And you need to show up at least twice a year, and you need to pay a fee for every month you intend to be here
I
before
like
you get
that.
back here again. And you have to stop letting these people enroll their children in public schools. If you don't have the proper documentation, ma'am, I am sorry. Because let me just tell you something. I know Black mothers who cannot get their kids enrolled in public school until they do all the things.
Yep,
Absolutely.
gas
Get
bill,
all the
everything.
documentation,
Absolutely.
get all of the shots, get all of the birth records, or they cannot enroll their children and they are American citizens. And then
Absolutely.
you are going to enroll immigrant children with no documents. That is not fair. That is not appropriate. We have to start. Listen, I am not against Donald Trump. And I'm going to tell you this. I voted for Ronald Reagan back in the 80s. I voted for George W. Bush in his second term. And I am not mad that these people have voted for Donald Trump. I am delighted to see the House, the Senate, and the presidency all in the hands of one party once again. And I guarantee you, the demonstration they're going to give Democrats this time, they will never forget it. They will never in their
Oh
lifetime
Lord.
forget what's coming to them right now.
You have
Okay?
never
He
presented that
He's
more
going to
truth.
show
Stop
them what
showing.
they should have done when they had the opportunity. Now,
So
some
let,
of it we're not going to like. Some of it I'm going to like very much. I'm in the real estate business, ma'am, and we're
how
going to
about that?
build, baby, build. And I'm also in the financial markets, and so the fact that's going to do well. Do you understand what I'm saying? That he's not all bad. Let me say this to you. And it's the last thing I'm gonna say about Donald Trump because I don't have no qualms with the man, right? Because I'm a Christian and I'm an American, first of all, and
All
I
right.
believe in supporting the president no matter who it is. Once
Yeah,
the
he's the
people have spoken,
president, so I'm
but
gonna support
I
him.
know that there wasn't foreign interference, but I'm not going to get into conspiracy theories and even contemplate that. I'm going to accept the defeat for the trumping that it was and for whatever reason, right? But if God can use an ass to perform his work,
Woo,
why not
not,
Donald Trump?
woo, you gonna
And then I'm going to tell you another thing about the God I serve, right? Is that he only uses that which is broken to perform miracles. And the
woo.
last thing I'm going to say, because it's a preacher here and I don't even have to go into this, is all things work together
It's a
for the
good
good of
for the
those who
good of
love the
all
Lord. And we
right, all
sure do
right,
love him.
all right. Well, I'm gonna tell you. I didn't vote for Donald Trump. I
Me
voted for
either.
Harris. But check
Me
this out.
too.
He is going to be the president of the
He's
United
my
States of
president.
America. So I am going to support him, and when I see they're doing wrong, I'm going to talk about them. But hey, it is what it is, okay? And matter of fact, I got an invitation to go to the inauguration, so I might be up there in Washington D.C. with the Republicans. You know what I'm saying?
Why not?
That's the way I'm thinking.
The
But
map.
let me ask
Um,
you a question.
go
What
ahead.
you say, Joe?
I was just going to say to Dwanda's point. Now that the executive office, the Senate, and the House are all belonging to the GOP, we're
Yes.
going to see something that we haven't seen in a while. And quite often, Damita, I am pegged as a Republican, and I'm not a Republican at all. I'm an independent at all costs. But I see what the Democrats are not doing to seize the moment on a regular basis. And I see what the Republican Party does to seize it every chance they get. And if this election doesn't prove that the American people are ready for a change, I don't know what is, because if you look at the map, the U.S., the House map, the only state that was completely blue was Nevada. New Mexico. The only state that was complete. Everywhere else, there's just specks of blue in the map. The American people were looking for something. Even California, although
Yep.
it went to her, there's a lot of redness throughout that state. It's just amazing to me, but that lets you know that people are looking for something different, and they're tired of that same rhetoric that these are the incentives and entitlements that we've given you. So now you got to support us. And the other thing that she said, and I've been saying this for years, that umbrella that we fall under of civil rights has now included everybody, their mama, cousin, and sister. And because of it, we have been placed on the back. We have been placed on the back burner. Every other organization, every other group of people that complain that they are not being noticed fall under the Civil Rights Act now. And because of that, they are able to get their agenda pushed far greater than us. And God forbid I say this, but everybody, don't get me wrong, I love John Lewis, but I can't tell you nothing that he had done in the years prior to his death that was specific for African Americans than they were for any other group. That's a problem. And that's the stuff that is being pushed under the rug. And that's the stuff that we're missing. LBJ said it, and he's continued to do. They try to denounce that he said it, but he said it. I'm gonna have these niggas voting Democrat for 200 years, and he's done it by entitlements, And then we fall under, and we think that entitlements are the only way. But the truth of the matter is, if the truth be told, we want a smaller government. We don't want nobody in our business like nobody else.
But let me ask you some, Joe and Dwanda. Do you think elected officials and the people have took loyalty over politics than the people? Do you believe that?
Absolutely. I think loyalty has become, I think loyalty I forget how I described it once before, but it's basically now people are just falling in loyalty out of stupidity. They're not even taking the time to research and read and find out the stuff on their own. They're just saying, well, my mama was this, my daddy was this, my grandma was this, so I'm just going to keep doing it. That's the same thing about church. You know, people, I say this all the time to my congregation. I say this to anybody else. Coming to church just to come means absolutely nothing. But until you know him for yourself, that's going to make the difference in your life. Don't be loyal to the church just because your daddy was a deacon here for 40 years or your mama was, that means absolutely nothing to me. You need to know him for yourself. And that's the same thing that we need to know the parties and the policies and things for ourselves rather than supporting it just because mama said that's who we're supposed to be supporting.
Can I tell you, I went back and forth with a military person about the Electoral College just the other day. And I said to them, listen, the Electoral College is part of the Second Amendment of the Constitution of the United States. I mean, I get that you want to share an opinion, but can you not share an opinion that's contrary to the Constitution? Like, what's that? And so then he tells me, I was in the military for 20 years. I said, and you signed up to swear and uphold the Constitution, and you don't even know what it means. God help you. Hush your mouth. You're not fit to serve. Who wants a soldier that don't know why they're there?
Yeah.
Let me
Come
ask
on
you.
now.
Let me ask you a question, Dwanda, because you lived in Atlanta. Joe, you both lived in Atlanta, and they call me a
Transplant.
transplant, okay, but that's all right. Let me ask you this. Do you think it's time now for us to elect people that's not connected to the past generation, the Martin Luther Kings, the John Lewis, and all of them? Do you think it's time to put people in office and that's going to have, and I'm not saying they're not for the people, but elect people that don't have, well, I'm going to vote for farmers because farmers' daddy was a civil rights movement. So
You're talking
I'm
about
going to vote for
Atlanta.
farmers.
You're talking about Atlanta. You're
Pardon me?
talking about Atlanta.
What you say?
She
You're
trying
talking
to
about
get me
Atlanta.
upset. That's all she doing, Reverend Flint. She trying to bait me and get me upset because Mike
I'm not trying to
Fund
bait you. I'm just
won an election that ain't no way in the world as people with any common sense would have voted against a PhD, one of 12 in the world in community economic development with experience in affordable housing and small business development, with bright ideas, well-educated, well-traveled, been around the world over somebody that almost dropped out of high school. We're going to college
who
right
did you
across
run
the street
against?
and wouldn't even finish Morehouse because he wouldn't walk his behind across the street. Now, if your daddy is Julian Bond, you think if you just didn't show up for 4 years, Morehouse wasn't gonna crown you one of their kings. So I'm just saying,
I
you
didn't
have
bait you. I see. I didn't even know that. There you go. I'm just asking because what I've noticed now, when I hear people say, it's the same people getting elected over and over again. They granddaddy, their grandmama, now they got the grandkids, and these folks are just running on their name and not really bringing them to the table. But bullshit. Excuse me. Let's
So,
go.
Danita, I
Yes,
think
ma'am.
that we need to go well beyond just Atlanta and people doing that, but we need term limits in Congress and the Senate. If you'd have been there
I agree.
12 years is it, baby. 12 years a slave and you free.
Supreme
Out
Court
of
too,
here,
baby.
baby.
I agree.
Supreme
Yeah.
Court.
So, but now, as far as Atlanta is concerned, Atlanta has these blue blood families. It's about 10 of them. They millionaires that Maynard Jackson made in some way or another. And then you have the political blue bloods, right? So maybe it's about 15 families when you put them two together, right? And if you're going to let them run Atlanta politics for the next 5 generations, well, you can only expect Atlanta to grow so much and to be so well and to deal so much with their problems because unfortunately in America, we are now in generations that are going to be less educated than our grandparents, less financially secure than our grandparents, right? And for the first time ever, it's a reversal of a trend of upward mobility. And so that in itself should be cause for pause, right? It's not like it'd be different if The generation was getting smarter. And so then we could say, oh, this person's grandson is brilliant, right? Like somebody like Asa Hilliard and his son Hakeem. Now, those are people that you might want to elect generations of because they're a genius.
Right, right.
Okay. Let me.
Atlanta is the, if you will, the mecca of that, electing individuals based on their parents and their grandparents' role in the civil rights community, and it's so unfortunate. But the first thing that came to mind when you mentioned that question, Damita, and as Dwanda was talking, is the children of Israel. You know, the reason why they stayed in the wilderness for as long as they did, because some folks had to die off. In order for us to move forward, some people just got to die off. Generations have to die off in order for a new generation or a new group of people to come forward to actually make it. But in addition to that, we've got to be willing to shift from that generation of people who fall under that, because Atlanta, and again, other places throughout the nation, but they just go from name recognition. You know it, I know it, in the Cascade Corridor in and of itself. All you got to do is put 3 or 4 signs out there of somebody's name who's been there, and that's just it. You don't see these people for months on end, for years on end, but when it comes time for election, people vote on that name. And Dwanda said something way back in the start of this, and I want to mention it. When I worked on a political campaign in Michigan back in 2010, I think it was, my candidate won the election 2 terms, as a matter of fact. But when we were riding around that day, I'll never forget, there were signs out there that had the big red circle and X through his name. And I got a little upset. And he said to me, he said, Joe, all publicity is good publicity. Said, no matter how they throw your name out there, it's good publicity. And so going back to the talk of the campaign, they spent too much time talking about Donald Trump. And so all you hear, I'm not hearing Kamala Harris, I'm hearing Donald Trump. I'm hearing Kamala Harris talk about Donald Trump. I'm hearing the Harris campaign talk about Donald Trump. I'm not hearing her tell me what Harris is going to do for my community. All publicity is good publicity, whether you want to acknowledge it or not.
Do you?
And if I could give the Democratic Party some immediate advice right now today on how to refocus, how to recalculate themselves, I would say focus on kitchen table issues. And all the issues that they put to the forefront aren't even things we should be talking about at the dinner table.
Okay. Let me ask you a question. Do you think it's time now, since we lost, that the Democrats should come to the table and discuss the head of the party, the leaders of the party, and where do we go from here in the next election? 4 years.
I think you better tell Democrats that this is what we want you to do in the next 4 years if you want us to show up ever again. No, the time has run out for playing with you. We are over it. This is the last slap in the face that we're going to accept smiling. This is the other cheek, and the other cheek, and the other cheek, and you're not going to keep twisting my face back and forth.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
Now.
And Ms. Farmer,
they got 140 more years to go, so they better get it together now.
What I hear from people is, and I'm always listening, what have they done for us? Why can't we have nice areas to live in? Why can't we have the jobs? Why can't we do this? Why can't we do that? And we have some smart, intelligent Black folks, but look like we have to fight harder for what we want. And then let me say this, then you have our Black folks that is fighting against the Black folks. So when will we ever get ahead? I'm just going to use me as an example, Joe. During this campaign season, I've had so many, I had people that send me letters about filing lawsuits against me. I've had people, Justin Harris campaign, people that belong to a organization sent me a email, oh, you don't know how to talk, you think you this, you're not a part of us. These are Black folks now.
Oh, I believe it.
These are Black folks. And for me, Joe, I'm not looking for anything. Because one thing I've told you, and you've been around me, I'ma still eat, sleep, eat collard greens, pig feet, and steaks, and do it all. And I think I give a great party, don't I, Joe?
Yeah, you do.
So why do we have to fight against each other when we're all trying to just help our people?
Well, I don't know that listen, there's always been gatekeepers, right? There's always been gatekeepers. I hate that I have so much knowledge in my head. You understand? Because like James Baldwin, what the Bible says, right? Much knowledge, much wisdom.
Take the text. Come on up.
Increased knowledge brings sorrow and pain. Okay. And so I just have to tell you, even James Baldwin said it best. He said, to be a Negro in this country is to be at a state of rage all the time.
All the time.
All the time. Right. Because just as you're saying, Danita, people expect me, because I have a PhD, to behave like they would like me to behave, to do the things that I used to do when I worked in corporate America. But I've been there, done that dog and pony show, and I absolutely refuse. Absolutely refuse. Yes, I'm articulate, no doubt about it, if I would so choose to do that. But I like the culture. I want to be authentically Black. I like Black culture. I like Black language. I like Black people. I like the way Black people, move. I like their swag. I like all of that about being Black. And so I like to exhibit it myself. So, but see, when they see that and in the workforce, right? Now everybody can show up in the workforce and be exactly who they are. Men can wear dresses, women can dress as men. They even want to use the bathroom, and I'm supposed to hush my mouth about that. Despite 40% American women being sexually assaulted, you're just supposed to be okay with a man in the bathroom and just trust that he's not there to bother you, which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
See, these are problematic issues that will drive me away. Right? That's not going to bring me under the tent. It's going to drive me away. Right? And all I'm saying is we have an opportunity to recognize each other's humanity, right? But this gatekeeping and blocking each other out, and here's why that is, Damita. It's because they only let one of us through the door. You ain't coming through the door with me. If you come through the door with me, then the people get upset. They've gone too far with this DEI. These people didn't earn it. See, that's the story. And what I keep on bringing it back to is America has a problem with race that she refuses to recognize. And until we do and address it head on, we're going to continue to act like it's not really happening. Like I worked corporate America for almost 20 years, right? First Black to work at the Army Navy Country Club in a non-service position, right? I just, but I can just tell you, well, I can't tell you actually how many times I was passed over, or how many times somebody came after me that didn't look like me, that I trained, and then they got promoted over me. And so that is the truth about America. And then if I was to object to that out loud, they would say, oh, it wasn't about race. Oh, but I have twice the education she has. She came here, from doing a mop job at the supermarket, and now she's in a professional role. She has no degree. How does that work? Right? But it does. And so they make you out to be the bad guy should you buck the system. They put one in the position so that person is the demonstration that it's not what you're saying, because this person is an example of successful achievement of all of what you're saying you're being prevented from having, right? And so it's a ploy. It's almost like gaslighting. It's narcissism. It's America's and her narcissism.
Let me. I got two questions to ask before I forget it, because I have a senior moment. Do you think during this election, I noticed we had a lot of Black men, especially in the city of South Fulton. We had a couple in the city of South Fulton where they belittled this Black lady. They belittled her. they 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 called her everything but a, a bee. They talked about how she slept with this, she was a whore, she was this. And my question was, when did black men get to a place that they degrade a black woman? And I kept throwing this out. How could you degrade her when you got a black mama,
Yeah.
a black sister, a black grandmama? How could you do that? Then the flip side of that, then we had, and I'm asking you, Joe, we had a black woman that every time that looked like she opened her mouth, she talked about this black woman, but never said anything about this black this the former
Felon.
president. And what I said to her was one day, would you speak this boldly if you wasn't married to a white man? Because at the end of the day, it is what it is. We gonna be a nigga, excuse me for using that word, no matter what.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do y'all agree with me?
Here's the thought process for that black man and for the black men that we're doing this. The truth of the matter is, we choose not to see our mothers and our sisters that way. Even though the truth of the matter is, some of our mothers, some of our sisters had to do things that we don't want to acknowledge to get us to where we are today. So we choose not to see them that way, and then throw the shade at somebody else who is doing that, because I got to protect my mama, I got to protect my sister, but you, I don't know, woman. I don't have any loyalty to you, so I could throw you under the bus. But I'm not going, because if I expose that my mother had to do some of these things, if I expose that my sister had to do some of these things, or my grandmother, then that makes me look bad.
Okay.
That makes me look bad. So I cannot show you that my mother, grandmother, and whoever else had to do these things, but I'm sure going to talk about you. So I'm going to protect my mother. The fact that she's black doesn't even matter. I'm going to protect her because she's my mother. I'm going to protect my sister because she's my sister. But now you over here making me look bad. That's, and it shouldn't matter. I agree that it shouldn't matter, but this is how I protect my status. This is how I protect my level that I've achieved in life. This is how I do it, by throwing shade at you and protecting everybody else behind me.
Okay. What you think, Dr. Farmer?
Well, listen, I think that Black women are the most unprotected women in the world, all around the world. Black women lack protection, and Black men in America do not have the ability to protect Black women. And I think part of what you see in the breaking of Black men is their frustration and being unable to provide for their families as well, right? Democratic politics do not help them bring home money to feed their kids and provide for a wife and a family. Right now, I agree with what Joe Flint said about them not wanting to see their mothers that way, and so they can say these things about Kamala. But I have a little different spin on that, Joe, because I don't know. You probably have a wife that's loving towards you, and you've not been out
Find
here
me
in
one
these.
there in Belize. Maybe I need to come there. I don't have one. Find me one in Belize. I come
I
there.
can get you one here real quick. But people who are single in America, there seems to be this divide with Black women and Black men as it relates to Black love.
Yeah.
Black men are upset with Black women for being single mothers, for being too masculine, for being too educated, listen, I did all the things that the church told me to do. Don't make no bastard babies. Get you a good education. Don't get on drugs. Watch who you run with. All these things, only for men to turn around and say that's unattractive. It's masculine, right? But the expectation of Black men protecting Black women, really, I don't know where it's a fantasy because it's never existed. Even back in slavery times, Black men couldn't protect their women. The master would come and take them and do whatever they wanted right in front of them. And if he had the audacity to buck, they would essay him right in front of everybody else. Okay, so this is America. It's who we are. We have been abusing Black women all the while. And don't just look at Kamala, just look at this year, all of the Black women who have been ousted out of their top level jobs at universities and big corporations, all under the guise of, oh, they're DEI hires and they're not qualified and they didn't earn it. And they're more qualified on paper than anybody who ever held a job before them. I mean, it's amazing how we just have so little respect for the Black woman. And I just, as a Black woman myself, it's non-negotiable from here on out. We're not negotiable. I see you for who you are. I am going to take people for individuals. If you treat me kind, if you treat me with respect, I'm going to treat you kind. I'm going to treat you with respect. But if Karen come over here, she's going to have problems.
Yeah.
And my advice to Karens is stop telling people what to do. They don't work for you. You don't own them. They're not your children. Just leave people alone. Just keep going and mind your business. All of us should just leave people alone.
Right. Let me get into since I got you on here for farmers, let me go on and get into Atlanta the Fulton County politics. Do you think that people went too far dealing with getting in Fonnie Willis' business, Madam DA business? Do you think that should have been kept out?
I told Madam DA when she first started down this road that Atlanta was scandalous and that they hate Black women. They would seek to destroy her, to watch what she put in her garbage can, because they will be going through your garbage can like they did mine when I was running for office. I know exactly who these people are, okay? And I told her, just watch your back. So really, she probably should have done a better job of keeping herself covered, right? I'm not going to make any judgments about her because I don't have heaven or hell to put her in. Right. Just like I'm not going to the abortion clinic to get an abortion, I'm not sleeping with married men. I'm not breaking up families. That's not what I'm doing, right? I'm not sleeping with my coworker. That's just not what I'm doing. But if that's the choices that she make, it's a free country.
I agree. Let me ask you a question, Joe, and then I'm touch back with you. It's this big issue with Fulton County Jail. Do you think that all the blame should be laid on Sheriff Labatt, although he's in there? Do you think all the blame, everything that's happening down there, should be just thrown at him? Do you think that, Joe?
Truth of the matter is, he's the head, right? So as President Truman said, the buck stops here. You are the one responsible for it. You're the one that took on the office of sheriff, and so you have to be responsible for everything that goes on down there. Now, does everything that has happened over the years of his existence fall on him? No, but what is happening in his tenure does fall under him, and he has to be able to use leadership at its finest point and be able to make the necessary adjustments for it. I think one of the things that he is pushing for, and I could be wrong, please correct me, I think he's pushing for a new facility in and of itself. Yeah. But I don't know that having a new facility is going to change the mindset of the people that are there. It's not going to change the mindset of the people that work there, let alone the prisoners that are there. So it has to start with the leader. The leader has to make all the adjustments in and of itself. Of himself, and then it will trickle down from there. But if you're not willing to make the adjustments, then no, it's not going to matter. A new facility, as the saying goes, putting lipstick on a pig still makes it a pig. It does not change.
Get off my Facebook page.
Let me add this to that, Damita. We have to stop. We have to stop playing. Stop playing in people's face. Stop it. The reality is, there's not a sheriff in the last 30 years that don't know what's happening in that jail. Patrick worked in that jail. He knows exactly how it's going down. And Patrick, when he became the top sheriff, should have been first priority to root out those bad apples, as would any good police commissioner. The day one that he gets on that job, he just started rooting out bad cops. Same thing with a principal. If you come to a school and you have bad teachers, they gotta go. Okay, you have got to do the job that you asked the citizens to elect you to. And if you are, And if you're afraid to do the job, don't take the check. We
So,
need somebody who is bold enough. You hear how I've been telling the truth all day. A lot of people are not going to like these things that I've said,
oh,
but
they ain't.
they're the truth,
It,
right?
I just believe in holding people accountable.
Yeah.
I say this all the time, Dr. Farmer. When we pay our taxes in Georgia, I don't care, and I don't like none of the politicians.
Well,
And
isn't this Patrick's reelection? Patrick got reelected, correct?
yeah, he
Because he
went.
was elected. Okay, so then check this out. He definitely already had 4 years to fix some serious problems that
Right.
there's nowhere in the world he had no clue that they were happening. And if he doesn't have a clue, then it's a the culture over there is really bad. Like leadership should go level to level to level to level. And maybe this level doesn't know what's happening down here with the rank and file, but somebody on this level should be real clear because they got a bird's eye view, right? And they shouldn't keep that to themselves. They should bump that to the next level.
Right.
Who then should get an understanding of this is a problem and I need to do something about it. And they need to try to risk assess that, right?
Yeah.
And then but if you have a senior leadership team, one of them should come to you and say, Sheriff, I have bad news.
Mm-hmm.
But we have a serious problem in this jail, and this is what it is. We have staff that are bringing drugs and paraphernalia into the jail, and we have a whole gang happening in here, and we need to get it under control.
Okay.
Okay?
Let me say this, Dwanda, and I'm gonna ask you. Uh, do we need more time? Can we stay? Can we stay 15 more minutes? Because I got come on, I got to. Let me ask you, Dwanda, because I was someone come to me with the tasks, and I'm going to do it.
Mhm.
To do a round table, sit down with the Republicans. I want you to be at the round table, you and Joe with me when I sit down at the table with them.
Good, because I have questions for them, and I have initiatives that they could do to satisfy me as a voter that would definitely send me over to the Republican Party.
Yeah. So I'm just waiting for them to get sworn in,
Yeah, I
and
have some work for them to do. I mean, I don't listen.
That's the point. That's the key.
All my life, I've
Work.
had to work with people who don't like me, don't want me there. I've been the first black, the only black, the this, the that on every job I've ever had. Okay. Or at least the first 15 years of my career. Okay. And so I'm used to it. I'm not in any way have a problem with working with somebody that really don't want me in the room. Even now, it's okay. Right. Like sometimes people are like, how'd you get all that education and get in this room? I worked hard.
That's
That's
it.
supposed to be the American way to achieve the American dream, except that for so many of us, it is not.
let me ask you, Joe, going forward after the January the 20th,
Mm-hmm.
we got 4 years. The Democrats got 4 years to get it right. Do you think they need to sit down and start doing a plan on how to bring the young folks into the fold, everybody in the fold?
Well, see, let me say this to that point. The young people, believe it or not, so many of them were on the bandwagon with President-elect Donald Trump. You know, the reason why is because, and I'm borrowing this phrase, but because he is unbought and unbossed. You know, that's what they like. Young people like that attitude that I don't give a care what you say, what you do, I'm going to do me. What's the song? You just do you, I'm gonna do me. That's
Mhm,
how
mhm.
he operates, and that's what they like. And so, in order, the problem with the Democratic Party when it comes to young people is that it gives a thought process of, again, because Mama said it, you got to do it. Because Daddy said it, you got to do it. And so that's where the young people don't necessarily identify with the Democratic Party. Some will. I'm not denying that some will, but they like the attitude that Donald Trump walks around. Now, do I think it's the greatest attitude? Not specifically, but that's what young people like. They like the fact that this man does not answer to anybody. He answers to himself. The doggone party can't even get him to do what they want him to do.
Right.
So that's why they like him. And so that's the thing with the Democrat. Everything with the Democrat, it's just like, and you know, I'm a preacher, I can't help it, but church, the formalities of church, does that really matter? Am I here to praise God, or am I here to be under the formalities that the church says I got to do? the reason why people are leaving church is because the doctrine, not because God is not there, not because Christ is not there. People are leaving church because the doctrine of your denomination says I got to do X, Y, and Z. The same reason why people are dodging or leaving the Democratic Party, because your doctrine says I got to do this, that, and the other. Trump has proved that you can be a part of a party and not do anything that the party wants you to do. And that's what the people are liking. That's what the young folks are running for. That's what they care for. Even though they have, the House and the Senate and the presidency, he's still going to do what he want to do. Yeah. That's just the bottom line.
So let me just say, I think young people see the world different. My generation, they came and they said, work hard, fall in line, do what you're supposed to do, and, make your way on your job and get your career going. And
Right.
Young people are like, my grandparents did that, and then they got kicked out to the pasture with no golden parachute.
Right.
I'm
Right.
not doing that. And then they're like, oh, you're saying racism doesn't exist, but look at all this in my face. That's proof. So no, I'm not going to go for the okey doke. I'm going to go for what I see and what I know and what I've experienced for myself. And I'm not going to be like a sheep being led to the slaughter. So young people, they have a different, they don't have that hurry up and wait mentality that the civil rights movement people carried as a mantra. I remember when I first came to Atlanta in the mid 90s, and Andy Young, Joseph Lowry, Hosea Williams, all these people, they used to have this People's Agenda that went on I think it was Tuesday, down at the Atlanta Life Building. And one day I was there, and John Lewis might have been there this day, and I was asking them, there's this whole generation of young Black people who have been highly educated, and, we're in the workforce now and we're still being oppressed. Like, what advice do you have, for us to navigate today's civil rights in today's era? And all of them basically gave me the same response of, we've made remarkable advances from my time, and things change slowly. It was basically hurry up and wait. Well, we don't want to do that anymore. I'm not going to you know why I left America? Because I did not want to live and die in my own country and never feel free. Over here in this country, I have never felt safer in America anywhere I've ever been in that country. I've never felt as safe as I am here. Never. Anywhere in America have I ever felt as safe as I feel here in Belize. I can go about my business any given day. If I hear something sound like gunshots, it's children playing with fireworks or somebody's golf cart or car backfiring. It is not that. And people here are poor. They don't have anything. And they don't have public housing. And they don't have WIC. And they don't have SNAP. And they don't have food stamps. And they don't have any kind of safety net. And yet they are very kind. They're very loving. They're not robbing people's houses. People still leave their doors open. I mean, not everybody. I don't anymore. But I'm just saying that these things aren't because people are poor and don't have anything that's driving this level of crime. I'm telling you, there's a anger boiling up in people that they have no way to do anything about that thing that enrages them most.
I have an extremely, I'm sorry, Damita, but I have the almost exact same story that Dwanda just talked about with the agenda. I'll never forget in 2001 time that I was working with them, and being a young person, excited to be with Dr. Joe Lowry, be with Tyrone Brooks, be with all of these people. And I was presenting them. We were on our way to Rome, Georgia, to be a part of something that was going on up there. And I had some wonderful things that I wanted to share. And I kid you not, Dr. Lowry and Tyrone Brooks told me to wait my turn.
Yep.
I remember this like it was yesterday.
And you don't get a turn.
So I'm gonna stick with that right now. Do you think it's time for and I know they finna get mad with me, but I don't care. They know I'm gonna say what I got to say. Do you think it's time now for the David Scotts?
It's time to go. It's time.
All the ones that's been there.
Time to go.
that's on
12 years and
wheelchairs.
that's it. 12 years in Washington and gone. That's it. 12.
Half of
Listen,
them.
let me just say this, and I'm not talking about nobody because I love some of these new people that went to Congress recently. Some of them my friends. Okay. But now I'm going to tell you that some of them, had no job or was waiting tables or had a pitiful job, and now they millionaires and they only been there 4 years. So,
Yes, sir.
hey, seem like to me in 12 years you'll be have plenty of money and you should go home and
Man,
let somebody else have a chance at wealth from public service. But there should not just we
how
can't change ideas if we let people serve 30 years.
I've never
Absolutely.
understood how you leave here saying that you're working for me, and then a few years later you're a millionaire. I've never, 2 years later now you're a millionaire. You were supposed to be the common man. Now you buy $1 million properties in DC. I ain't talking about nobody. I'm just talking about what I'm talking about.
That's all
But
I'm
that's a
saying.
problem.
Can you trade
That
my
is a
stock
problem.
portfolio like you trade yours?
That is a
Let,
problem.
so what I'm saying is you need like and I'm going to go on and say it. You need the David Scotts, the Donzella James, and all them to pass the mantle on. Are we going to wait until we die just like John Lewis, and then we got to go and run and get somebody to take his seat for a few days, and you got black folks fighting for that seat?
I
That's
feel
We
like at 70 years old should be mandatory retirement. Because y'all baby boomers won't go nowhere and sit down. Y'all gonna outlive us, Gen X people, Gen Z, which gen are we? Gen X, y'all gonna outlive Gen X. Gen X gonna die before y'all, and we'll never get promoted because y'all been holding on to the job since 1990.
Yeah,
And we will have spent our whole career serving under you for 40 years, and I never could get to my dream job because you won't retire.
that's exactly
yeah,
right.
and I heard Joe say something about
Come on.
Congress John Lewis. I didn't even know he lived in our community until I built my home down here. And anything riding down Camerton Road, you need to put a bag over your head and say, "With the world, the potholes, the
Mhm.
everything. It's horrible to have a congressman living over there in that area and
Also,
nothing was done."
he wasn't living in that house before he died. I forget where he moved to, but that house is just
Moved
boarded.
over by Camp Creek.
Yeah,
He
that
has a new house over by Camp Creek.
house that's off of Campbellton Road is just boarded up. It's a beautiful home, but it's just boarded
No,
up.
no, that's over the house I'm talking about is over by Camp Creek.
Okay, yeah. But
Yeah,
yeah,
So
that he moved to the new house before. Yeah. It
So,
was
so what
boarded
I'm
up.
saying is,
just
you
boarded
got
up.
all these people like Mitch, over in Republicans. That's when he talked, he just froze up, couldn't
Right.
move.
They talked about Biden so bad. Mitch McConnell was doing it before Biden started.
Yes, so, right, you talk about Joe Biden, but you give Mitch a pass. Matter of fact, the former president might have a few little issues there too. You know what I'm saying? He might have a little issue going on too.
Listen,
It
he
comes with age.
is the oldest ever to be elected president of the United States, and he'll be the oldest when he leaves office. He's the oldest ever to be elected. Donald Trump. Now,
Right.
uh, I don't know what he does as far as keeping his mind, going, but apparently, whatever he's doing, it's helping him. So, I don't know if he does Scrabble board all day long, but he does something that keeps his mind sharp. But it's time for anybody who has been a career politician to move aside and let other people to come to play it back, because it's not fair. It's not
Yeah.
fair, to Dwanda's point, to your point, Damita, to serve 30, 40 years, and we see some things that you've done, but we can't really pinpoint anything that you've done in the more recent years. And then you aren't even, the same constituents that elected you are not the same people that are electing you now. You're being
I
elected.
really don't want to be mean, but what did John Lewis do other than get knocked upside the head?
I ask this question all the
Now,
time.
he and I had an argument in 2007. No, seriously, he and I had an argument in 2007 about Barack Obama. I said, what have you ever done other than get knocked upside the head? And you got knocked upside the head so black people could make a way to advance in this country. And we have an opportunity to put a black man in the White House, and you're going to endorse somebody other than? Like, I don't understand, sir. Who are you? And
So
how am I as a young person to look up to you?
I agree. Let me ask you a question, Dwayne. I'm with you. Give me 3 things that you would love to see the new administration going in January the 20th do for the people, and especially the Black people. Give me 3 things.
Okay. One would be to open an immigration office in every county across this country, or at least within a 1 hour's drive of anywhere that people could be.
Okay.
And I would definitely, get a hold on immigration and people in this country unlawfully. And I probably would deal with them more harshly should they not follow those rules. Right. I mean,
Okay.
once you get here, however you get here, you should be able to go to an immigration office and stamp in. Right. So then that kills the illegal. Right. Because you
Okay.
come and presented yourself and now it's okay. I mean, we were open border country where people could come to this country from, I mean, that was what they made America on. Right? Give us your people, right? Come to America and let's create this new vision for America. And we can't, unless we're going to be a different America, then not letting immigrants in this country doesn't add up.
Right.
Right. So we need to manage immigration. And I'm
Okay.
all for that. And so that would be the one thing that I would do. The second thing that I would do is I would look for ways to erase the wealth gap in America between low income people and um, the rich by creating more opportunities for them to own housing, to own businesses, to do the things that would generate wealth for this generation that could be passed down to the next.
Okay.
Certainly would like to see more money put into urban cities for restorative practices. And in fact, since so many cities are majority minority, I certainly would like to see those cities to have access to far more resources because the damage that has been done, we need reparative justice,
All
right?
right.
And yeah, we need reparative justice in our cities. And if we can just find 50 million out of 50 trillion, billion out of thin air to send to Ukraine, then we can find 50 billion to work on American cities that Black people live in and white people enjoy with us. And they would like to see it to be less
Absolutely.
crime, more beautiful, affordable, all of those things that make them lovely and for us to be happy living our best lives. And so those would
Those are the
be,
3.
yeah,
Okay.
my key areas that I would focus
Okay.
on.
Give me 3, Joe, real quick, because we winding down. We got to go to Mr. Norm's show. Give me 3.
Listen, the first thing that comes to mind is to root out the injustices, that we see based solely on economic poverty. We got to get rid of that. The other thing is bring more inclusiveness to the table for African Americans in this administration. I think they can do it. I think that he attempted to do it in the previous administration that he had, but I think this is the time now for the Republican Party really to seize the 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 African American voice. It's really time for them to see. So be more inclusive in the African American voice. And I think the other thing is, my biggest thing is I travel as infrastructure, and especially in our communities. There's just not enough of it. And
Amen.
this is not specifically the administration's problem, but it boils down to our local levels. But if the
Local.
administration can some way, somehow get involved on the local levels, because it's sad, that I ride around in the communities for which I grew up in, and it looks the same as it did when I was born back in the early 80s. It's a shame to me that Martin Luther King looks the same as it did back in 88. Of course, I wasn't born in 88, but it's the same. It looks the same back then. It's a shame that it looks like it did when I was walking the streets in the early 90s. So I think the administration needs to look, create a task force or somebody to look at the local infrastructure, especially in our communities, and to see what can be done to improve it, because the people that are serving in our communities really aren't doing enough for it.
I agree with you. Well, we coming down to the wire. We got an extra 50 minutes, and I hear you say that because and I'm going to call his name out. Reggie Tatum always says this: every Martin Luther King street in America
It's the same.
looks the same and looks a mess.
It's in a
Wow.
ghetto.
Yeah.
It's in a
That
ghetto
ghetto.
and it's horrible.
It's horrible. So we got local level, federal, and state.
Right.
And I will say this: I believe in local level should stay in their lane, handle the local level. State should stay in their lane and handle the state. Federal deal with the federal, and we can get a lot accomplished. But when everybody trying to take care the federal trying to take care of the local, and the local trying to take care of the federal, and then the local looking like like it is, we create problems. I want to thank you guys for coming today. Dwanda, you be looking out for my email just as soon as my dear Republican friends get with me. We're going to have this roundtable. They've been talking about this even when I did the primaries, to sit down. And so we're here now. We're here. President elect Trump is the president. I might not agree with him, but one thing about it, I do not hate him.
Right.
And we're going to have to work with them to get something done.
Right.
We got to work across the aisle, because if not, we're gonna be eating up. The folks gonna be trying to see if they get their SNAP and the Section 8. And I told the young folks, y'all go out and vote, because if he take y'all SNAP and y'all Section 8, it ain't nobody's fault but y'all's, because he said he was going to do that. And so we're going to keep an eye out on Project 2025 and see how that maneuver, and see if he going to cut the overtime out. And before I go, someone reached out to me last night and said that Project 2025 that I put out on social media was a lie. And I come back and said, I got it from you guys. Matter of fact, a Republican is the one gave me the 922 page, told me to look at it and break it down. So again, I want to thank you guys for coming on the show. Dwanda, you keep on doing what you're doing. You keep it real. And one day I'm gonna get over there to Belize to check you out, but we're gonna have to come back, because let me tell you.
Let me know. We can go over there together. We
need to all plan a trip to
absolutely
the radio show. But let me tell you, so many calls and texts has been coming through the phone since we've been talking. And so before I go, because I called, because I know they're gonna say she called these elected official names out. It's nothing about the elected officials. Those was the ones that came to mind, because I believe everybody have a season, and when your season is up, is up. Thank you guys for coming on, and we'll get back with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. God bless you all.
God bless you all.